Hello, everyone. Dr. Christine Smith back with a really wonderful guest for you today. This is Laura Frontiero, who I know through a bunch of mutual acquaintances and kind of highly functional medicine oriented and breaking the mold oriented groups of practitioners. And I wanted to bring her on today because she has such a cool background. So, hello, Laura. Thank you so much for coming on. And I would love if you could tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in this particular approach to care.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Glad to support your community and help get the good word out about some natural, functional, integrative healing kind of pathways, modalities, the ways that we can heal our body naturally. I am a Western allopathic trained nurse practitioner, spent 21 years working for the biggest, one of the biggest, not the biggest healthcare system in America, Kaiser Permanente. And about 15 years into my career, I was introduced to the gut microbiome and functional medicine. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it's fascinating because, in the early days of my career, patients would ask me, isn't there a natural way I can solve this? And my answer was, no, there is no natural thing. You need to take this prescription. We need to run this test. You just need to exercise more. You're eating too much, calories. You need to cut that down. And that would be our solution for everything. And then once I could see that there was a lot more to healing than what I had been taught, and people would ask me, Laura, is there anything I can do to naturally solve this without that prescription? Well, now I was in a pickle because here I am working for the Western medicine world. I'm getting paid to practice Western medicine, and I've got this knowledge of functional medicine, and I've got people literally begging me for it. And I'm in a position where I literally don't know what to do because I don't have any support or backup from my, chief of staff or my administration to teach integrative natural or functional medicine in a Western medicine space. So the writing was on the wall. I had to leave because once you know it, you can't unknow it. And towards the end of my career there, I was literally having consultations with patients who are saying, yes, there are natural things you can do. I'm not going to write this down in your chart. If you email me a question about this, I will deny that we talked about it. I will not acknowledge that we had this conversation. Do we have an agreement that I can share information with you? And, I'm not going to acknowledge that I told you this if it comes back to your electronic medical record and documenting of it. So I'd say, okay, off record, you can do this, you can consult with this person, you can try this supplement, and then people would go off and be so happy that they actually got a solution that was not a Western medicine solution. And then I'd write in their chart, patient declines treatment. Right? I mean, that's what you're faced with.
The fact that you had to do that is insane a little bit. Like the fact that you can't tell people how to heal themselves. Let me ask you this, if you're open to it. What were you afraid of dealing with?
Because I was literally attacked. So at one point, I recommended to a patient, I was working in an osteoporosis clinic, and I recommended that a patient take vitamin D with K for better absorption. I literally had an internal medicine doctor attack me. How dare you? There's no research evidence to back this up. I've searched PubMed, da 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 da. And I was
Because
like,
no one will pay for it.
I was like, okay, I literally have been silenced. I'm getting attacked by doctors for making recommendations. And so I must stop because at that point, you're like, my livelihood, being able to pay my mortgage, pay for my family, make my car payment. Like I couldn't jeopardize my job. I didn't have a side gig at the time. I didn't have another job to be back. So I was like, okay, I was muzzled. I was silenced. So, it just takes a few times of being attacked by a superior to say, okay, I'm going to stop trying to do the good work. But I did eventually leave, so I could do the good work, right?
I wanted to ask you that question just to give people perspective on like what people and practitioners in Western medicine deal with. It's such an interesting pressure system. And so I have a lot of empathy and understanding for why both systems exist. But I'm so glad that you decided to come into the functional medicine system because you're right. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it was kind of, I mean, I didn't even quite arrive to it until my early 20s or so. And then once I saw it, I couldn't go any other direction. So I love having these conversations with people who can see such a broad range of things like yourself. And that even applies to the body. So I know you are often known as the gut genie and that you work with a lot of chronic gut imbalances. And this influences all of the systems in the body from our hormonal regulation to mitochondrial health, even our biofield and those concepts, which might be new to some people. How do you like to address these layers in your approach to care with people?
Yeah, so it is layered, right? There are so many layers. And I do believe it's a very individualized approach. So instead of instead of approaching that everyone must do everything in the exact same order, you can help people get results with what they're willing to work on right now, and then layer in more later. Now, is an order of operations, in my opinion, to effectively and efficiently healing the body. So in terms of order of operations, we want to open drainage pathways first before we even start healing gut. If I start killing stuff in the gut, bacteria, parasites, fungus, and I don't have a pathway out of the body for that dead stuff to go, we're going to make people sick. So very first thing I want to do is get the drainage pathways open. What does that mean? It means support the lymphatic system, support the bowels, get people pooping every day, get the liver working, get the kidneys working properly, get everything online and working. Support mitochondrial energy production at the absolute minimum. Like, that's where we want to start. How do you do that? You could do it with supplements. You could do it with lifestyle choices, sleep, circadian rhythm regulation. You can do it with different biohacking strategies. There's a lot involved there. Second order of operations, I always go straight for the gut, no matter what the problem is. They come to me with a hormone problem. They come to me with a brain fog problem. They come to me with an asthma problem. They come to me with I've got a chronic disease. I'm a cancer survivor. I have heart disease. I've got beginnings of dementia. You name it. I've got autoimmunity. I have bad menstrual cycles. I'm going to start with gut health, and I'm going to support that, since the gut is central to all body healing. And then from there, I'm going to set the foundation for being able to detox by supporting drainage pathways and gut. And then, and only then, I'm going to go into deeper detox. This is where I live in the functional medicine space. And I always say that you need a team of people to support your journey. It's not just one person that's going to solve all this for you. For example, I don't test hormones. That's not my jam. That is after. So hormone work, in my opinion, is after we do the things I just talked about. And I can't be everything to everyone. And I stay in my favorite zone of work. That's another thing. Now that I'm in my 50s and been around the block a few times, I know that I can just focus on what I love and I don't have to do everything. So I refer people to colleagues for hormone work. Once they've done the foundational work, now you can get your hormones checked and actually get your bioidentical hormones and have them work, or you can get your thyroid work, or you can get, you name it, all these different hormones. So you do need a team of people to help you with this. The person who helps you with detox might not necessarily be the person who helps you with hormones. Those are two different people, just like in the Western world, right? You might need a dermatologist, you might need an endocrinologist, but they're not going to have much crossover. They're going to have their specialties, their lanes. That's possible. But I do believe that you can meet people where you're at, Christine. And I think that's really important, because some people tell me, like, if you tell me I have to cut out gluten, I'm not doing this. Okay, great. Let's work around that then.
And you have to, like, you can't. I was that person who had everybody be like, just stop eating this, just stop eating that. And then I'm down to, 3 foods and like 112 pounds. I'm like, this is not working. And it can tank your hormones and change your gut when you have like such a limited diet like that. So I always kind of educate people about rotation. And I'm so glad that you brought up the detox pathways, because I think a lot of people misunderstand those. And there's a lot of fads of like, yeah, just go do this like huge parasite cleanse. And your body might not be ready for that. And
Yeah.
often, if you're struggling with your health, it's not. So there's like a lot of little things that you can do to help work the detox pathway backwards and clear the path, just like you're talking about. And then I'm the same way. I'm like, well, let me fix all the foundational stuff first, and then hormones should be last, because if we fix all the foundational stuff, they should re-regulate themselves. And then if we need any additional help, then we can. Any other thoughts you have?
Yeah, I would just say, if you're a menopausal woman,
Yeah.
chances are you're going to need some bioidentical hormone support. You're not going to re-regulate back to what you were when you were 30. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I'm definitely an example of that. I take bioidentical hormones. If I don't take them, I get brain fog, I get sleep disruptions, I get like my body needs that extra estrogen support, but at least I'm on the minimal dose that my body requires because I've done all the other work. So I don't have to be on a high dose. And that's the key is minimal dose for effectiveness to benefit you. So how do you create that? All that pre-work to get the body ready.
Well, and you're addressing all the risky factors around it, which is not being able to metabolize it correctly. That's when there's usually problems. And so if we address the detox and we address the metabolism and the gut and the liver and all of that, then it's less likely to have a bad effect on the body. So I think that's a really good approach. And in your detox programs, I know that you balance the physical aspects of detox, like liver and kidney and things like that, with like the emotional and energetic detox that really accompanies the deep healing work. And it's not always the easiest to face, and it's usually not the most pleasant, but it's in my world usually the most important. But what are your thoughts around that?
It's a big, big topic. And I've worked with, thousands of people in my detox programs. And I'll tell you, the ones that heal the fastest are the people who are less controlling nature, that are less over analytical. So there's something called analysis paralysis, where you need to know everything about everything before you can make a step forward, or it's always the sky is falling, right? Like, oh my gosh, this happened. And so now this, and now this, and it's impossible. And you can speak, you can speak impossibility over your life, and your words have a lot of power. The people who have a hard time healing are the ones who are skeptical, who lack trust, who challenge the practitioner at every turn. Well, I was watching listening to this podcast over here, and I heard this, and da, da, da. It's like, that's not healing energy. That's, I don't trust. That comes from a place of fear, and therefore I challenge. And you're doing that everywhere in your life. If you're doing that with your healing journey, you're doing that with your spouse, you're doing that with your kids, you're doing that with your parents, you're doing that with your in-laws, you're doing that with your boss, you're doing that with your coworkers, and you're really freaking hard to be in relationship with, and it's going to end up in loneliness. Mark my words, people will give up on you. And so stop with the drama, stop with the overanalysis, stop with the perfectionism. And I'm really on a soapbox right now. This is a really big question you asked, Christine, because
It's important.
I wish I could wave a magic wand over the groups of people that I work with and just take the fear away. All of that comes from a place of fear and lack of control. And it's really a learned behavior. So in childhood, we were out of control. We weren't able to trust the people who were supposed to take care of us or teach us or whatever. And it may have been the littlest thing that you didn't even connect, like a teacher or somebody who made you feel not safe or that you weren't able to trust. And then it builds and it snowballs. And you become this impossible adult, and you won't heal. You will literally block yourself from healing. And when I work with groups, I run big groups. Right now I have a group of 600 people, and we're all doing gut healing and going through that together. And in the chat, we'll see people identify with their illness. I'm a diabetic. I'm insert name of disease, right? And they're identifying like, that's me. So what would it be like to have a small shift of, I have diabetes and I'm healing, right? Very different context. It's a very different context. So speaking possibility over your life, taking your guard down and trusting a practitioner that you decided to work with, to allow that practitioner to support you and help. This would be very helpful in many people's journey of healing. That emotional piece is so big.
I actually love your response to that. And I am glad that you're as passionate about it as you are, because it's so true. And I've now seen this time and time again in practice. And it's people just can't release or absorb nutrients or toxins when they're in an emotionally tense state.
Yeah.
Because energetically in their mind, when they're that anxious about everything, they're that overthinking and that analytical and that fixated on controlling it, it makes the whole body go into like a cellular danger response and tighten up. And so your
Yeah.
cells are like this locked up system, and you can't absorb nutrients and you can't release the toxins from inside the cell. And so you get stuck in this state. And a lot of the time, you're right, you're like emotionally testing people. This usually comes from stuff from childhood. I never expected to end up getting trained in like 4 subconscious reprogramming modalities, but it happened because they were tools that were needed for practice. That's how I develop my practice. I'm like, what's the next tool that I need? And then I go learn it. And that's just how it's come to be. And I use it all the time. And even just like a slight perspective shift on their, I think the identity thing that you brought up is huge. It's actually one of my issues with our diagnostic system is it labels people as a thing and then they identify as that thing, and it becomes this energetic frequency that they emit and that they tell their body, and then their body responds to that. So like I have probably had some kind of autoimmune reaction in my life, but I don't say that I have autoimmune. I say that my immune system is in an active state, and then I realize that I need to change my lifestyle to get it out of an active state. And that is how I manage that, because I did like some autoimmune tests, everything came up negative. But rather than searching for the needle in the haystack, of which the solution is the same anyway, which is regulate your lifestyle to regulate your immune system, that I think is generally the solution for that. And then working on those childhood things. And it can affect even as deeply as the mitochondria.
Yeah. Something that I often see on Instagram is I'll see people who make their Instagram handle their disease. And like, I'll give you an example. Like somebody out there has the handle MS girl, like multiple sclerosis girl, or like they'll put the diagnosis in the handle of what they're working on shifting in their life. And you're literally speaking that over your life as the way it is. And I would encourage anyone right now who has made their Instagram handle or their license plate or anything that has to, or they've tattooed it on their body, get rid of that. Get rid of that. Do not name your Instagram handle the name of your disease.
Absolutely. It's your brain is the most powerful thing that you have in your life, more powerful than any drug, any nutraceutical, anything else, because like that's why the placebo effect works, right? Your brain can produce any chemistry that you can imagine. And the more that you imagine it, the more it's going to be produced. So I want to bring up, I know you were also recently on a summit, the Mitochondrial Matrix Summit, and you were kind of talking about energy and all of this. With all of the work that you do, what do you think is the coolest thing about mitochondria? And then, like, what would you want people to know about them?
The coolest thing about mitochondria.
Mhm.
Well, it's literally foundational to being able to heal any problem going on in your life. It starts with mitochondrial energy production. So I think a good place to start here is, what do mitochondria do besides, just make energy? They also help every system in your body communicate. And they drive responses. They send signals around to your body for example, launch the white cell attack on, this invader, go do it, or shut down the systems. We've got a virus here. It's going to steal from us. Everything shut down, cellular danger response, for example. But let's talk a little bit about energy. So there's the energy that we physically feel. So this is the energy I feel throughout my day to get up in the morning, get ready for the day, go through my tasks, my work, my whatever I'm doing. Maybe you have energy that lasts, till 1 or 2 o'clock and then it crashes. Maybe you keep going. That's the physical energy we feel, the energy to go work out, the energy that we get from exercising. That's the energy we notice. This is when you say, oh, I'm exhausted. That's that kind of energy. Then there's this behind the scenes, what I call like the wizard behind the curtain energy. It's an invisible energy. This is what makes every system in your body work. So none of us are aware of our heart pumping blood or aware of our lungs filling with oxygen. None of us are aware of the gas exchange that occurs in the arteries and the veins. None of us are aware of the digestive process. We're not aware of our body making hormones or making neurotransmitters or making enzymes or sending signals through neurons. We're not aware of any of that, but it's all driven by an energy. And that energy is created by mitochondria. You even need energy to sleep. You need mitochondrial ATP energy to fall asleep and stay asleep. I'm sure there's people listening right now who are like, I'm so tired, I can't sleep. I'm exhausted, but I can't sleep. You probably have mitochondrial energy decline amongst many other things. So When we think about healing, we have to think about supporting mitochondria at the bare minimum, at the very basic level in order to heal. Any disease process is a mitochondria problem. Chronic end stage disease like cancer, like Alzheimer's, like congestive heart failure, this is just severe mitochondrial dysfunction. So if we aren't solving health at the mitochondrial cellular level, if we're ignoring that piece, then we're going to have a very hard time getting well, getting better.
I ask that because I also consider them just the foundation of so much, but they are these tricky things, right? Where it's like we actually don't want to charge them up if the body is still toxic. So we have to do all those pathways that you're talking about at the beginning of moving things out of the system before we can turn on that battery of the cell or that nuclear power plant. Because when we're dealing with toxins or we're dealing with gut issues, like when we have leaky gut, we can get leaky mitochondria, we can get leaky brain. Basically, all of our barriers can get leaky. Our body is just a big mirror of all the other parts of our body. And so with all of this, if the mitochondria aren't functioning, then you can't produce that foundational, basic, like first step life force energy that you're talking about. And it's interesting. I was actually at a conference and I was talking to Hemal Patel, who's one of the top researchers for Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's come out with this new mitochondrial test. And we were just kind of chatting about mitochondria and playing with the idea of like, well, if it's like the first thing to produce energy in the body, is this where like universal energy is coming from? And so therefore it's almost like a seat of consciousness in a way. So like there's so many things that we don't know yet and that are so broad, and our bodies are such amazing quantum vehicles that like work in all of these different dimensions. And considering that like vast depth and how all of this interplays with your experience and all the people that you've worked with, what do you think is the most important part of healing?
Mindset
Mhm.
before
The
before
signals you send to the body?
yeah, before any of it is your mindset. Can you put yourself in a I can heal state, in a I can heal energy? Are you, and this is the this is the simple concept of, is the glass half full or half empty? Can you take an experience that feels uncomfortable, maybe feels uncomfortable physically, emotionally, whatever it is, and can you find the learning experience, the blessing in it, the opportunity for growth? Can you identify that? That is first and foremost what people need to heal. You can be an academic on the gut microbiome, and if you don't have the mindset to heal, the knowledge doesn't help you. It literally doesn't. And I can't tell you how often we've seen this in our community of people who are just not open to shifting that mindset to healing possibility. The ones, I mean, I work with people that have been through so much. They have literally many, many infections in their body identified on labs. All their labs are crazy. They've worked with so many people, they've tried so many things, and here they are continuing to work through this. And the thing that these people have in common are a willingness to heal and a I can do it attitude. And all they need is one little glimpse of possibility. They need one day of feeling better. And maybe they regress and go back into not feeling well, but they had a glimpse of what it feels like to feel good, and they know they can heal, and they keep working and working and working through it. And these are the ones that ultimately have results.
Yep. Consistency is more important than anything. Well, other than the mindset, because you're right, you can't heal if the signals to the body aren't right. So I'm in the same vein where it's you have to believe that your body is capable of healing. And that is one of the things that I'll remind people like I still love our conventional system. I think it has its role. Like if I break my arm, I'm certainly going to the hospital. But I remind people to like watch the language that's used, because there's a lot of language that's used that's like, no, that's not possible, or no, you must do this, or anytime it's command language like that, that's like its own hypnosis. Like get multiple consults, do your own research, use critical thinking, know that there were a lot of ways to heal people before we ever had that conventional system. So just know that there's like so many things out there, and it's worth talking to people and listening to things. And this is why I host this channel and why I invite incredible people like Laura on to talk about these things, so that you can feel empowered, and educated, and know that there are ways that you can investigate your own health and see what's right for you. So, in this, if people are really stuck in like a negative mindset, how do you help your clients break free from these like long-standing patterns in their physiology, because your mind affects your physiology, and their thought processes to help them get to these states of healing?
Yeah, well, the first thing is like I said, I run a lot of group programs. And so you never know what's going to come up when, you're answering questions in a group. And I think one of the most important things in the group dynamic and that healing, and people heal well in community. So I want to say this is what I love doing is groups programs, because there's a component of community that's really empowering to people. Actually, my communities heal faster than one-on-one clients. The
Yeah, I'll
one-on-one
agree with that.
kind of VIPs, they take forever to heal. The community people, like they fly. So I think one of the first things as a practitioner is when somebody brings up negativity in asks a question that everybody goes, oh God, I can't believe a person asked that or said it. How's she going to respond to this? It's leaning into it and being curious. Tell me more about that. And, how is that, or where is that coming from? Or why is that coming up for you? And being willing to explore an alternative perception of it. So are you open to being coached around this? And have you considered possibility of this? So getting people to crack a little bit and think, okay, maybe there's a different way to approach this or a different mindset. And then once you get that buy-in from someone that, yes, possibly this could be in a very loving way, there could be a different way to approach this. Now finding out, what are you willing to work on? Of all the things that you've learned and I always say, I'm giving you a buffet of options. You've got all these things you can do to help your health. What's the thing that resonates with you that you think you can execute and achieve? And let them pick it. Be in control, right? Because at the end of the day, the negativity comes from lack of control and fear. So giving control back to the patient and letting them pick what's going to work for them, and letting it be okay if I don't want to take that supplement and that protocol. And I took that supplement before and I had an allergic reaction to it. I doubt it. It was probably a therapeutic reaction that didn't feel pleasant. And now you think you have an allergic reaction to it, but okay, let's go with it, right? I mean, I doubt a true allergic reaction happens for most people. I think we're in the habit of saying that made me feel nauseous, therefore I'm allergic to it. That gave me diarrhea, therefore I'm allergic to it. That gave me a headache, therefore I'm allergic to it. No, allergy is I can't breathe. My throat is scratchy and closing up.
Like, I need an EpiPen.
That's allergy. So, and being able to be okay with healing is not always fun and a picnic. Sometimes the response to healing is unpleasant. And
When they say you need to feel to heal, and sometimes that feeling is not always the most pleasant.
so sometimes it's a push through moment, not a pull back moment. When you took, a supplement protocol and you're like, that dropped my energy and I didn't sleep well last night, I'm never doing that again. Actually, it was working, and keep going, because if you stick with it a couple more days, all that's going to turn around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the balance, of course, of listening to your body. So if you ever have, an uncomfortable detox reaction, definitely check in with whoever you're working with.
Like, what do I need to help, like, prevent
Yes.
this detox?
How can I support this?
Yeah, I'm assuming, because if you're in my community, we're opening drainage pathways before we start doing anything that could cause that. But yeah, definitely some people aren't getting the benefit of that. But yeah, I mean, this is such an art form, right? Being able to meet people where they're at.
Would you be open to sharing one of the perception transformations you helped somebody do recently?
Oh my gosh. Well, it just happens like every day, right? I mean, it's constant, it's nonstop. A particular client comes to mind where, every single time that we meet in group, she's just, and you try everything, right? You comment on the environment they're in. Oh my gosh, is that a blah, blah, blah in the background of your house? Like, I have one of those at my house, right? You try to like create connection with somebody to bring down that wall of, you can't help me, I don't trust you, to have human connection, right? And ultimately, what supports when we get into situations like that is being a constant loving presence, is not taking the bait. So I would say that that is a huge, huge tip for practitioners who could be watching this, even though inside you may be feeling like, I am so done with this person. I don't want them in my community anymore. I can't, like, they're
They're
bringing
testing. They're testing the universe for love.
exactly. They're looking to prove or disprove that they're worthy, right? Or to prove, I know I'm not worthy, and the practitioner is about to prove it to me right now by lashing back at me, right? And so I would say one of the things is just unconditional love for humans, and knowing that when they're lashing out or being, difficult, or, refusing to let in the coaching, it's actually not about me at all. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do whatsoever. And so the way you lead in that moment as a practitioner in front of others is going to help build your trust with the others. You will have undying follower. They will follow you to the ends of the earth when they see you handle a negative person in a loving way. And I would say 9 times out of 10, the person who's operating from a place of fear and distrust eventually trusts. But it's about getting them wins in their health. And again, it's about getting them to choose, what thing are you willing to support in your health? What thing do you want to try? Okay, great. Let's try that. Let's talk about that.
Well, and I think that's why the group programs can be so amazing, is it's just a group of perspective shifts happening together. So it's like multiplied. You get to listen to everybody's, and then you get to imprint all of that into yourself. So
You do. And some
I,
people say, I don't want to hear other people's questions. I just want, like, this isn't working because I don't want to hear other people. But I'll tell you, the gold is in other people's questions. It really is. You will see yourself in it. Like,
it's
oh,
like a evolution rocket boost. Like it moves you through a bunch of layers that you're going to go through anyway, because you're doing it with other people and they're presenting the layers to you before you reach them. So
absolutely.
that's how
That's
I look at
a
that.
great way to think of that. And, I will say the majority of people are not this, fear-based person we're talking about. The majority of people are absolutely open and willing and loving and want to heal
Yep.
and have fantastic results.
Well, and I'll make the comment about, like, when you're dealing with something where you need to detox, your brain is messed up, or at least it was for me. Like when I was going through like mold and my body was in a toxic state, my brain was in like the most victimy, like, woe is me, the whole world is crumbling around me, like nothing works, I have zero resilience, like I can't get the lid off of something and I cry. And like just allowing yourself that space to realize that when you're dealing with toxicity, you have like zero resilience and you're way more suspicious. And then I started thinking about this with, like, mold, mycotoxins, that's like a living organism. And so it has its own frequency. Like fungi and mycelium networks are still something we do not understand, like not to the full extent. And so when it's in your body, it's like interacting with you on an energetic level, and your body is paranoid, like you have an intruder. And so you're just paranoid about everything in your life. And if you can realize this when you're going through it and acknowledge that because your brain is toxic, you probably have lowered resiliency and you're probably overreacting, it will actually make your life easier to notice those things. And then you just take your time, you go have your emotional reaction, and then you come back and you realize that that was like the mold talking, or the toxin talking, or the bad liver talking, or whatever you're dealing with. So just acknowledging that when you are dealing with microorganisms in the body or something like that, or toxic heavy metals, any of that, it messes with your thinking patterns.
I 100% agree. I can think of a particular client that when she first came to me, she was so anxious. She was so over the top. Everything was an emergency. And I can remember thinking, I cannot wait for this 3 months with this person to be over because I can't do it anymore with her. And once she got the infections out, she
Yes.
became the easiest, most lovely client, and it was incredible. And I've seen that multiple times with people. It's the infections talking. It's not actually who they are. And so that's another thing as a practitioner, to not take it personal. Now, I'm human, right? I'm going to have these moments where I'm like, enough of this person. Like, this is too much. I mean, I've literally had people come to me and say, nobody will work with me. Will you? I wonder why nobody will work with you. How have you been showing up?
Yep. Well, and I think what we're talking about is even important for other practitioners to know, especially like psychologists. If you have somebody coming in and they're in like the depths of apathetic depression and like nothing, no medication, nothing has worked for them, check their house for mold, like check their body for infection. They're probably dealing with something like that. And it gets missed all the time.
All the
So
time.
as we kind of come to wrapping this up, if there was one thing you really wanted to tell people or wanted them to know, what would that be?
Well, I think I would say you can heal.
Yeah.
I would say this is so important to hear that, to believe it, to know. And if you're watching this, you know you can heal, right? If you're watching this, maybe you got triggered by something that we said along the way. If it triggered you, that means that it is you. So there's that. So I lovingly tell you that if anything I said triggered you, bingo, now acknowledge it and work through it. So you absolutely can heal. That is what I want people to hear. And also what I want people to hear is, I get this all the time. And I think I think we live in the Amazon world where I want it now. I'm ordering that package and I want it delivered by the end of the day, or I want it by tomorrow. And people want their health transformation that fast as well. And it doesn't work that way. It literally very rarely. I mean, I can probably count on one hand the amount of clients that resolved their terrible symptoms in 2 weeks from whatever I told them to do.
I would say, I'm like, it's 90 days. It's at least 90 days.
Yeah. Or longer. For me, it's like 90
Usually
days
longer.
is setting the foundation for the deeper work. But it depends on how sick you are when you come, like how symptomatic you are, how deep into into this you are. But yeah, this isn't an overnight. And so I would caution anything you see out there is like, get better with this detox in 5 days. Like that's laughable.
Well, when you think about the fact that people can, like accumulate something like, say, diabetes over the course of 10 or 20 years and then reverse it in like 5 years, it's actually not that long. And it's really impressive. So
Yeah.
just like knowing that your body's designed to heal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You lived into it. You can absolutely live out of it. Right. I don't know who first said that, but it's definitely the truth. I don't know who to credit that statement to. It's not me, but you can
Yeah.
live out of it for sure. And I think that it comes down to how you're experiencing your environment, your surroundings, the people around you on your daily. How are you experiencing that? Because you actually have a choice on how you experience what's going on in your life. Everything that doesn't work out doesn't have to be detrimental. It can
Yes.
act, it can actually be a positive learning experience of, okay, I tried that. It didn't work. We can eliminate that from the list of things that's causing the problem. Great. I'm one step closer to finding the answer.
That saying, the perfect is the enemy of the good. I'll also share the one major thing I learned going through mine when I was struggling to trust my body, struggling to trust my decisions, struggling to trust other people, and struggling to trust the universe because I was just like having a rough time. And I couldn't figure out where to put my trust. And the one unshakable place that I found to put it is in your own resiliency and your ability to get back up.
Yeah.
That is the one unshakable place that you can put it. So put your trust in your body's resiliency and its ability to heal, and just hold on to that and focus on that. If everything else feels overwhelming, focus on, I trust my body's ability to heal.
Yeah. Are you resilient? That's a great question. Resiliency is literally magic.
This,
And humans are very resilient. I just want you to think about a great example would be the Holocaust and how people survived in those concentration camps with no access to healthy food, healthy water, sanitary conditions, and they were resilient and made it through. The people who gave up died. Obviously, I'm talking about you died if you were put in a
yep,
gas chamber.
yep.
There's no escape. If you were in the concentration camp, I mean, there's been so many documentaries and books. I think of Viktor Frankl, right? And
That's exactly what I was going to
yes,
mention.
Viktor Frankl and his survival of this, and what he had was this deep resiliency and knowingness and trust that he could survive. And he also knew that the way he was being treated was not actually about him.
Yes.
It was the mistreater, it was their baggage, it was their problem, it wasn't actually about him. And I mean, there's so much to unpack there, but this has been a deep conversation. Wow.
Well, to me, health is deep, right? People forget it. And it's like we are holographic beings made of frequency when it comes down to like the nitty gritty of the science. Like when you go into physics, like we are made of energies and frequencies. So that's why what you think affects your cells, and why what you put in your mouth affects your cells, because the resonance of a whole food developed by nature that was meant to be a part of our bodies compared to something that is synthetic and genetically modified or squirted out of a machine has a really different effect on your health and your body and your resonance and your ability to process life and your resiliency, because really resiliency is what health is. It is your ability to take on the world and maintain state. And that is resiliency. So I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. If people wanted to learn more about you or wanted to listen to more of your stuff or work with you, where would you direct them?
Yeah, thank you. I want to say one more thing. Health is not the absence of disease.
Yes.
It's not. People think it is. What is health? Well, it means I'm not sick. Health is actually our natural state. So
Yes.
I'll leave you with that. And you can find me at laurafrontiero.com, laura.frontiero on Instagram. My name is like the Great Frontier with an O on the end. It's pretty easy.
I
Thank you so
remembered it
much.
really well when you told me that. So I love that. So for anyone listening, definitely give her website a visit. She's on a bunch of podcasts as well. And just thank you for taking the time to do this and for helping get this information out there so people can start to be empowered by learning how their body works and then taking control of their health again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christine.
Yeah. Have a great day.